Hey everybody, today we're going to talk about the CamFi for Sony. Sort of like a CamRanger that you'd have for a Nikon or Canon. Hi everybody, I'm Curtis Eustace with Curtis Eustace Photography and Video, a place where we're going to elevate your photography to the point or the place where you want it to be. So hi everybody, I have been wanting for years a CamRanger that works with Sony cameras. And the CamRanger is a really neat little device. It plugs onto the camera and controls the camera via Wi-Fi or however it does it. I'm not quite sure. And I don't actually have one because I have a Sony, and the Sony isn't compatible with CamRanger. It only supports Canon and Nikon. But a company in China by the name of CamFi has come up with a device that will actually do the same thing a CamRanger does, but with Sony. So when I bought the unit, this is the actual unit itself. It develops its own Wi-Fi, and it connects to the Sony through the Sony's multi-port here. So you still have to actually connect a USB cable to the multi-port on the Sony. So it creates its own Wi-Fi. Now it also has a LAN connection. So if you're close to the computer, you can connect a LAN connection directly to this and your computer, which will download faster. Since these are like 42 megapixel files, over the Wi-Fi they can take a few seconds to download. And the cable connection allows you to download a lot faster. And you hear my dog sniffing and sneezing. I don't know what she's sneezing about. But anyway, she just hopped up on the couch, so we're good. So I'm going to take you over to the computer here in just a second, and I'll show you the actual interface. Now, it comes with PC software, iOS software for your Mac, and it also has device software for your iOS iPhone and your Android phone. Now, the features I'm going to show you in the beta version of the CamFi PC software are not yet available on the Android or mobile application yet. Now, they should be coming out soon. There's two features that I really wanted, and I'm going to tell you right now that the customer support of CamFi is beyond fantastic. I emailed customer support when I first got it, and I said, you know, I wanted two features in the software that they didn't have. The number one was a true bulb feature. So in other words, like in Sony Play Memories, you can slide the slider over for bulb. It opens up the lens or opens up the camera, and then you slide it back when you want it to close. It did not have this feature, but they have added this feature to it because I asked them to. How nice is that? How often does that happen? So in the software, you'll see that I can click the button, all right, and then it'll open up the camera, and then I click it again, and then it'll close the camera. That's number one. Number two, I wanted to be able to do the bracketing, an ISO for HDR, and I want to do it with people. So one of the downfalls of this is not CamFi's fault, it's Sony's fault. Since it has to connect to the Sony via the tether option through the multi-port, all the photographs have to be downloaded to the device that you're using. Okay, so this isn't so good. So I'm going to get back to that in a second. So in other words, when I want to do a bracket on ISO, it takes a photo, downloads it to the computer. It changes the setting to ISO setting, takes a photo, downloads it to the computer. Changes the ISO setting, takes a photo, downloads it to the computer. Now, if you're taking a person, this is way too slow. You got to be able to take photos relatively quickly, 1, 2, 3, and then download it to the computer. So I asked them if they could, they said that they could probably put in where it would save it to the buffer of the camera and then I could tell it to go ahead and download it to the PC. So I could take my bracket 1, 2, 3, and then it would save the photos in the buffer of the camera, and then I would tell the software to download the images off the camera onto the PC. So my subject wouldn't have to sit there and wait while each one downloads before the next exposure. But that's one of the bad things about this, and it's not CamFi's fault. It's the firmware of Sony and how the firmware works with Sony. Sony doesn't allow you to save to the card of the camera. When it's tethering, it has to download off of the camera. So that's why CamFi came back and they put in a delay on the download, so the download can then be saved after you take the photograph. So if you're doing a bracket exposure, it'll do the photographs and then download to the thing. But the only camera that Sony has that it's compatible with, where it will save images to the card, is the A6500. And I have a funny feeling it's because of the new menu system and the new firmware. So will Sony upgrade the A7R II or the A7 series to this new menu system? I seriously doubt it. We'll have to wait probably for the next generation, the new A7s or the A9s or whatever it is that they're going to do. So, I mean, that's one of the differences between Canon and Nikon. So the Canon and Nikon allows you to save your photographs to the card. I know I had an email exchange with Frank Dorhoff, and I was saying that he wanted to be able to save the raw photo to the camera and then transmit the JPEG image to the computer for his workshops and things like that. It won't happen that way, not with the A7R II. He can do it with his A6500 most likely, but not the A7R II. Everything, since it's working in a tether type environment on the camera, it has to download that image to the device that you're using. So in other words, if I've got this connected to the computer, it'll automatically download the images to the computer. If I've got it connected to a tablet, it'll be downloaded to the tablet. There's two different Wi-Fi modes. I think there's an ad hoc mode where basically I can have the images download to my computer if I have a Wi-Fi network covering my house, let's say. The CamFi can connect to that network and the computer can connect to that network, and basically they'll talk to each other over that network. CamFi usually makes its own Wi-Fi network, but in this case, this is going to make a connection through the network. So I would be controlling it via the phone, and then it would be downloading to my computer on my desktop if I'm away from the computer. But usually my laptop is right there, so I would just have it download straight to that computer and not have to worry about the ad hoc. But it is an option, okay? So just keep that in mind. So let's take a look at the computer and look at the software, and you're going to be looking at my 9890 printer, which is sort of a mess right now. I've got it focused on that. So we'll be taking lovely photographs, very artistic photographs of my large format printer. So let's take a look. This is your CamFi software. Now it's sort of got a glitch, I've noticed. So when I go into live view, the bulb mode deactivates. So I'm not going to go into live view, but I'll show you that glitch in a second. But here's your camera here. My Sony A7R II. I've got it in bulb mode. I can set the aperture, I can set the ISO, white balance, all that good stuff from here. Right now I have it on auto download, but I'm going to tell it to stop. This is one of the features that I asked for when I contacted customer service. I wanted to be able to bracket using ISO, and I didn't want to have to wait for each image to download. I wanted the software to be able to take a photo, take a photo, and then download. So if I was taking a portrait, like an HDR portrait, it would then buffer it and then download it later. I didn't want the subject to be standing there waffling around while this thing took 30 or 40 seconds to download. Personally, I like to have the subject, or when I'm doing, especially with people, if they're standing or moving or anything like that, or standing, they still got to be still. I like to go 1, 2, 3 as fast as I can. As fast as those strobes recharge, I want to do the next shot. So that might be an issue there. But we'll do it where it's holding the images and then where we download the images. So I'm going to open this up. The shutter opened. A timer pops up at the top here, right here at the top. And then I'm going to go ahead and close it. Okay. So now it's saying, since I have the auto download off, it's saying it's detected a download. So then I can hit download. Then it's 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000, 6, 1,000, 7, 1,000, 8, 1,000, 9, 1,000, 10, 1,000, 11, 1,000, 12, 1,000. So it usually takes around 10 seconds. It's what I've found out. So this may have taken a little longer. Maybe I did a little earlier. So let's go ahead and do an auto download. So the auto download's on. I open up the shutter, and I'm just messing around here, so don't, this is downloading raw files only. And then 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So this is actually a direct connection with my Wi-Fi and the CamFi. If I were to plug in the wire, the cable to it, it would go probably a little bit faster, but it's still going to take at least 5 seconds for it to download. Okay, so one of the things that I wanted was to be able to shoot bracket modes with HDR. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this setting to, let's say, 1/80th of a second. Let's say I'm shooting in the studio 1/80th of a second. And so when would you need to shoot or bracket with ISO? So when you're using strobes in the studio, changing the f-stop will not change the exposure. Changing the lights is not going to do anything. So you need to, it'll just be underexposed. So you need to be able to bracket with the ISO. So here under bracketing, you can't bracket with bulb mode. You have to bracket with the ISO. Here it is right here. So I can select EV, aperture, shutter speed, ISO. I'm going to select ISO. I'm going to start from ISO, let's say 800, and then I'm going to take 3 photos. So now the first time I'm going to do this is I'm going to bracket using auto download. And so this is what's really, really slow. Let's just kind of keep an eye on this thing. Okay, here we go. Start. So now the camera is pumping up its ISO to 800. There goes the first exposure. It's downloading. After it downloads this, it'll take the second exposure. Second exposure. And you can see it's way dark because I've got it set at f8. And I'm just using my printer sitting in a dark area of the room. And now it's going to do the last photo. And it's at 1250 ISO. Okay, so that was the third one. So I'm done. Okay, so let's do auto download off to see how that increases the speed. So basically what's going to happen now is that all the photographs are going to be held in the buffer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it to do ISO, but I'm going to pump up the ISO to start at 1000 ISO. Let's do this. Let's start at 1250. All right, so then I'm going to go ahead and say 3 photos. Should be 1 stop in between, step size, and then start. So it's pumping up the ISO to 1250. It's exposing the first one. Two. And I'm waiting on the third one. 3. There it goes. Done. Okay, so now I've got photos to be downloaded. I click on the download button. Now it'll download all 3 photos. So it may be still a little bit slow. You know, usually when I bracket, I like to have things go bam, bam, bam. But since we're doing bracketing with ISO in the studio, the strobes will have to have time to recharge anyway. So maybe that gives you a good enough thing, and you'll just have to have your subject sit still or put them in a position where they can sit still for an HDR photo. And we're downloading the third one. Okay, so there it goes. Now this does also have a time lapse function here. So, and I really am not, I haven't done too much with time lapse, honestly, to tell you the truth. But here are the settings here. So you'd have to set your camera to bulb mode, of course, and then you set up the intervals and the counts and the start time. And so anyway, it does have that too. So stacking would have to do with focus stacking, record for video. I have not tried those modes yet. I can try to quick put it into video here if we want. Let's see how that goes. Did it do anything? No. It's in movie mode up here, but I don't see anything down here as far as being highlighted. Yeah, so I click this button here, and it on the camera it says movie recording starts with movie button. Okay, and then so it reflects the movie, but I don't think it works in like a tethering type scenario. So this button must be for another camera, a different function. So this is the brief overview of the CamFi software. Like I said, the customer support is par none. So that kind of gives you an idea of the CamFi and a basic. Now, will this work better on a Canon or Nikon? I don't know. The supported cameras for Sony are as follows. It's going to be the A7R II, the A7R, A7S II, A7S, A7 II, A7, A6500, A6300, A6000, A5100, and A5000. Will it support the A99 II? I don't know. So those are the cameras that is supported. If you have a question about your particular Sony model, email them. They will email you back. I can't tell you how good their customer support is. It's one of those things that it's refreshing. They don't take a day to get back to you. They get back to you like almost immediately. Keep in mind they're emailing you from China, so the time difference may be a little bit off, but their customer support is phenomenal. I wish everybody had customer support like these guys. These guys not only answered my question, they added a couple features that made sense to it because of my inquiries. How often does that happen? Like never. So keep in mind, customer service. Will this stay in my camera bag? Yes, it will. I wish I had an A6500 to show you guys, but I don't. I will most likely buy the next generation Sony. Anyway, I will probably buy an A6500 here at some point. So at that point, the CamFi will work much, much better, I believe. Now, how it works with Sony or Canon and Nikon, I don't know. Your mileage may vary. If somebody buys one for a Sony or a Nikon or Canon, I'd love to hear it. But the Nikon and Canon don't have the same problem that the Sony does. In other words, when you have this hooked up to this Canon or Nikon, you can always record to the card. I am pretty sure. So, but I'm not definite on that. Sony's just, the operating system's just a little weird on this thing where, pardon me, when it tethers, it has to download every single photo. It can't save it to the card. Like I said, the A6500 is the only camera in the Sony lineup that's supported by CamFi that will save the photograph to the card. And the A6500 takes phenomenal photos. It does. And I've taken a lot of photographs with my A6000. Very happy with it. Very happy with the image quality. When I go travel, I usually carry both cameras and I use them back and forth. I don't worry about 42 megapixels or anything like that. The A6000 is 24 megapixels. So great camera, great photos. I do love my A7R II though. And I wish it would work with it, but I don't see it ever working unless they update the firmware and the menu system. And from my understanding, Sony's not going to do that. It'll just be on the a6500 and the newer cameras. So, hope that helps, the CamFi. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. I'm sorry if it was a little bit long today, but there was just a lot to talk about. So if you like it, give it a thumbs up, share it for me, and we'll see you next time.